as far as what the Texas map will produce, I've tried to be as consistent as I can be that the goal was to create 3 to 5 new pickup opportunities in the state of Texas. Now, over the last few months, the Democrats have said, well, what you're really saying is you're trying to build a 5-seat bulwark, I think is what Hakeem Jeffries said last week, against, Democrats. Like, it's not a bulwark. What we did is we created 5 new Trump plus 10 districts. 2 of those seats were seats that Trump had, the president had narrowly won in 2024, and we made them more, seats that he carried by a wider margin. The other 3 were new Trump seats that were Trump plus 10, and then 2 that are about Trump plus 20. And so that's the reality here. Is we're talking about 3 to 5 new pickup opportunities in the state of Texas. I think that 3 of them are solid Republican pickups. That's Texas 32, Texas 9, and Texas 35 are ancestrally Republican. When you look at where they've been over the last 10, 15 years, they reliably elect Republicans to Congress. They would have reliably elect Republicans to Congress, the U.S. Senate, governor, and the presidency. And then you have 2 districts in the Rio Grande Valley that are what I was calling emergent battlegrounds before, and now I would say they're realigning districts. These are Texas 28, which is Henry Cuellar, and Texas 34, which is Vicente Gonzalez.
All right, guys, good Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. It was a busy weekend. Today's show is for the political junkies. Adam Kincaid is going to go with us state by state to see whether or not Republicans can keep the House based on redistricting. We will talk about every one of these key states that is redistricting and what's in store, where it stands. Trust me, you will not see this anywhere else. If you love politics, if you know someone who does, send that link to anyone right now, because trust me, I'm so excited. This is going to be one of those great, great shows that nobody else will do. A lot happening over the weekend, and a terrorist attempt at Gracie Mansion in New York, the home of the mayor there. We'll see how that breaks down over the week. You got 3 suspects involved in it so far. Iran has a new leader. They chose Khomeini's son. I mean, this was like a huge red line for President Trump. They did it anyway. Really stupid. The president announcing a big event at Doral on Friday, the Shield of Americas, to help fortify and protect the Americas. And then he attended the dignified transfer at Dover Air Force Base of 6 service members that have been killed in this conflict with Iran. We're kicking off 3 days of the House Republicans down in Doral, strategizing, the president addressing them today. So much more to break down. We got a great week headed your way. The guys from the Media Research Centers will join us on Tuesday. My buddy Seth Keshel on Friday. He's got a brand new book out. Go to Amazon right now and order it. But speaking of new books, I got to tell you, I want to read for you for the first time ever part of what President Trump said about my book, Trump 2.0. There are very few people who understand it better than my friend and former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer. Sean has been with us since the beginning. He played a central role in helping us defeat crooked Hillary Clinton in 2016. He has been a warrior for our cause ever since. If you want to understand the people, the policy, and the process of my second term in office, read this book. I hope you enjoy it, and always remember, the best is yet to come. That's just part of the foreword that President Trump read. Thank you for his support. If you want to get the whole thing, go to Amazon right now. Click on Trump 2.0 and order that. I really appreciate it. Anyway, before I bring in Adam Kincaid to talk about redistricting, you guys know this. We have a lot of talk about the economy and affordability, but the backbone of our economy is small businesses. And right now, of the 36 million small businesses in the United States, 70% of them say that they really need access to capital, whether that's hiring, expanding, more manufacturing, more marketing. They need more capital, and big banks are tightening the standards, approving fewer loans, and making small businesses really, really struggle. If you are a small business and want the bank rates without the bank delays, check out my friends at cardiff.co/Spicer. It's Cardiff, CARDIFF.co/Spicer, not .com, not .edu, cardiff.co. You can get up to $500,000 in same-day funding. It is the largest privately held small business lender in the U.S. They've lent over $12 billion since 2004. The application takes just minutes. You can get same-day approval. It doesn't affect your personal credit. Cardiff is the key for small businesses right now. So if you're a business that's been operating for over a year, pulling in $20,000 a month in revenue, apply now for $500,000 of same-day funding at Cardiff, CARDIFF.co/Spicer. All right, guys, if you are looking to vote, with your wallet every day, like I always insist, to support great companies, great shows, all that kind of stuff, you've got to check out my friends at Patriot Mobile. They are not just a wireless provider. They are an activist organization selling unbelievable top tier cell phone service. They've been on the front lines of defending our freedoms, giving a portion of their profits to Second Amendment companies, pro-life organizations, veterans organizations. They deliver prioritized premium service on all three major networks, giving you the same or better coverage. It's backed by 100% US-based customer service. You get unlimited data plans, mobile hotspots, international roaming, all that great stuff. You can activate in minutes, keep your number, keep your phone, possibly even upgrade. They literally send you a QR code on the email that you just upload and it activates your new card. It takes just a few seconds. Go to patriotmobile.com/Spicer, patriotmobile.com/Spicer, or give them a call at 972-PATRIOT, and you'll get a free month of wireless service on me. patriotmobile.com/Spicer for your free month. Without further ado, I want to bring in Adam Kincaid. He's the president and executive director of the National Republican Redistricting Trust, and he's going to break down state for state or us where we are. Hey, Adam, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us. I'm excited to break this down state by state to get a sense of where we are.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. It's there's a lot going on. I'm happy to break it down with you.
All right, so I want to start with kind of some of the states that are done to just get a level set as far as making sure that I understand where we are. California, the Dems went in hard. They look to get 5 seats out of there and shore up some of their other ones. There's a lot that's happened since you and I spoke last in terms of where the dust has settled. Darrell Issa announcing he's not going to run for election. Kevin Kiley announcing that he is going to run, frankly, under the no preference party, whatever, but he's sliding a district from where he is now based on the redistricting so that it's not a member on member. Walk us through what the latest is on California.
Yeah, so California faced a pair of lawsuits last year over their map and their process. Those lawsuits ended up failing at the 3-judge panel in the Ninth Circuit. No big surprise about the Ninth Circuit. It went up to appeal to the United States Supreme Court. The Supreme Court didn't issue an opinion. It just allowed the ruling to stay in effect. And so the California map will stand for the cycle. It's a weird situation because in California, you had testimony, well, not testimony, but some comments from the map drawer, a guy named Paul Mitchell, who I've met, nice guy, who went out and said, when I was drawing the California congressional map, I prioritized the creation of a Latino district in Los Angeles. And I took the racial elements of the California Voting Rights Act and applied them to this new California congressional map. Now, if that's something that someone on our side of the aisle had done and gone out and said, I did all these things for racial reasons, that map would not have stood. And it would have been thrown out by any liberal judge anywhere in the country. And most conservative judges would look at that and said, you can't do that either. But since a Democrat drew the map, then it's a whole different situation, right? So I think what the U.S. Supreme Court did, they saw the California situation. The record had not been developed as well as they needed it to be below, because it was a very, very quick process. And so they just allowed it to stay in effect. But I think that California map in the long term, obviously it doesn't help for 2026, but in the long term, I think it is on very, very shaky constitutional grounds.
So 2 things. One, you said temporary. I know that's a word that Dems love to throw around now. We'll talk about that later in the show when we get to Virginia. Is it just for this cycle and then it reverts back, or is it until the next decennial normal redrawing of maps?
Yeah, so the California map is in effect through the 2030 elections unless a federal court throws it out. And the reason that Democrats like using the word temporary is it's not inaccurate. Every single map is temporary. It doesn't last more than 10 years. Of course it is.
I mean, I was going to say, right? Every map, right? I mean,
this is a temporary map. Yes. Well, there are no permanent maps. So it's just a nice play on words.
Okay. Second question. Dems went in for all 5 seats. They redrew these maps, as you just discussed with the map maker himself. Issa not running for re-election, which I think is a big blow because he's got a lot of money and a lot of name ID from his service. Right. And then Kevin Kiley running in this less certain district. Realistically speaking, do Dems get all 5 seats that they sought?
I think they're going to get three probably, and then we'll see if they get the fourth and the fifth. I still think that David Valadeo is in great shape, and we have a puncher's chance in Ice's seat. So no, I don't think that, with all of these, we'll see where they end up. But I think that Valadeo's always been a strong candidate in the Central Valley. They didn't shore up a couple of the other seats in the Central Valley that they could have, and I think that they may pick up 3, 4 seats. I don't think they'll get all five. Could be wrong, but I think Valadeo is a strong incumbent.
But so we can give them three on the board,
Sure.
and then two are in question. All right, let me move, and I'm just doing these kind of in random order here. But in Missouri, there's a new map. The last time we talked, Republicans gain 1 seat. How are we? Is that final? Is that the net gain out of Missouri?
Missouri is not final. It's very, very close to final. There's about, I think, 6 lawsuits in Missouri. Different Democrat groups brought different challenges to the map, different process challenges. There's also a referendum campaign to try to block it and have the voters choose. They're trying to fast track all of these things, but there's statutory timelines that they have to follow in Missouri for validating signatures and all the other things. So I'm optimistic the Missouri map will stand for the cycle and Republicans will be +1.
So that's it, just a net 1 for Republicans.
That's right.
Okay, and that's as much juice as they can squeeze out of that.
It's very, very difficult to split up the St. Louis seat. So yes, that's where you're going to be is +1.
And that is that the Clay seat? Isn't that
the St. Louis seat has a new incumbent in the cycle? Yeah, it would be the old Clay seat. It's so the one that was carved up was on the west side, the Kansas City seat, which was Emmanuel Cleaver.
Okay, that's right, the Emmanuel Cleaver, and so that's it. That's the max they're going to get there. All right, I want to move east. North Carolina is of concern to a lot of people for a lot of reasons. A lot of activity going on there. Big Senate race, but they enacted a new map there that was designed to flip at least 1 seat. So where are we on that? And is that materialized? Is that actually going to be a Republican seat? And is that the max that they're going to get out of there?
Yeah. So the new North Carolina map is an 11-3 map. To elect 11 Republicans, 3 Democrats, which is about all the juice you're going to squeeze out of North Carolina. And as far as the new Trump +10 district is North Carolina 1. They just had their primary last week. The incumbent Democrat is already in the low 40s. So yeah, I mean it's a Trump +10 seat. We have a good pickup opportunity there. We have a good candidate, and yeah, I mean it's like even in a bad midterm, a Trump +10 seat in North Carolina should still be solid.
And it's not threatening any other seats, though, correct? In other words, we didn't dilute anything to get to that Trump +10 seat.
Greg Murphy gave up some strength in his district, North Carolina 3, but he's still in good shape for re-election. Yes.
Okay, so net out of North Carolina is +1.
Yes, I'd say it's +1.
Okay, with 3 seats down, California, I think we've given them at least 3. Missouri's +1, North Carolina +1. So we're still down +1. I want to move to Ohio. Kind of a similar situation, I think, in the sense that the maps have been, at least as far as I know. Let me ask you this. Where are we with Ohio?
Ohio's maps are done. No one challenged them after they reached an agreement. The commission cut a deal. Republicans, Democrats got together and said, let's do this map. And they all said yes. So it passed unanimously.
And is that because Democrats were just cutting their losses?
I think a lot of it was Democrats looking for the best outcome they could get out of the commission there. Yes. And then there was, the Republicans were looking to shore up Ohio 9, which is currently Marcy Kaptur, and cut a deal for the other 2.
So what's our net out of Ohio?
A +1.5.
+1. +1.5. Okay, but that Marcy Kaptur seat, that has been eluding Republicans as long as I can remember.
Yes.
How did it start and how did it end in terms of its partisan divide?
Yeah, it's now, I think, a Trump 10 again. So it's moved significantly to the right from where it was before. It's a much, much redder seat. It's much more winnable. And we're in a much better position there than we were last cycle in Ohio 9. Then the other one that they went after was Ohio 1, which is down in the Cincinnati area. It's now a narrow Trump seat. It's still a tough seat to win in a midterm, but it's much more gettable than it was 2 years ago. And then the other seat that they messed with a little bit was Ohio 13. That's Amelia Sykes. That's up in the Akron area. That one actually moved left by a little bit. And so what they did is they made Ohio 1 more winnable, Ohio 9 significantly more winnable, and then took Ohio 13 and moved it left. So it would take more of a rightward shifting midterm or presidential for that one to be on the board, probably.
So when you say plus 1.5, it's because we shored up that Marcy Captor district, and then that other one, the Ohio 1 district, I guess we made that winnable, but not a guarantee.
Right. That's right.
Okay. I know Sherrod Brown's running, very popular there. I mean, he's a former statewide office holder, very populist in the mold, like Bernie Sanders. If he keeps that Senate seat competitive, is that going to have a big effect on, say, like that Ohio district that you just mentioned?
Look, at Ohio 1 would stay close even if he made it competitive. Ohio 9 with a good Republican nominee, and we still have primaries to play out there. So with the right nominee in Ohio 9, we can win that seat without a problem, even if Sherrod Brown's winning well ahead.
Okay, but they don't. That's not the and him being on the ballot should not be a down ballot concern, is what I'm hearing from you for the most part.
Look, I think that Sherrod Brown. And you have a governor's race there, you have a Senate race there. Ohio, probably won't be as red as it's been the last two presidentials just because it's a midterm. But I still think that Ohio 9 is going to be a very, very winnable seat for us this cycle. And I don't think that the governor's race or the Senate race will make that not the case.
All right. This all kicked off, at least got the media attention after Texas. Republicans signed this new law into effect that in theory netted them 5 seats. Talk to me about where Texas stands in light of everything that we've seen since the map was redrawn.
Sure. So first off, let me take that first thing that you said. The media does really like to say that President Trump started this in Texas. That's the reality is that we've been in a redistricting war for the better part of 15 years now. So, if you go back to 2011, when Republicans were able to control a lot of the map drawing in 2011 and 2012, Democrats responded with their Pseudo Blue strategy, which ended up flipping seats in Texas, Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, Pennsylvania in the middle part of the decade. If it wasn't for the left-wing litigation that was brought in the 2010s, Republicans would have won the House of Representatives majority in 2020. And so what you see, moving forward to now is a lot of the same thing where you had, in the right before the 2024 elections, Democrats went in and they swapped out the head of the New York Court of Appeals, the chief judge of the New York Court of Appeals, brought in a new judge, then brought in another new judge, then said you can only bring map challenges in this specific court, nowhere else. As if to make sure that they position themselves to, control that moving forward. And then they, fired up a lawsuit and were able to get a redraw in New York, right? You had a, Pseudo Blue fired up again in multiple other states moving into this decade. You look at the overreach that they had with trying to extend the Voting Rights Act past what it was supposed to be done in Alabama and Louisiana, where they picked up seats there. And what we've done, Republicans, we've done everything we possibly can to fight back against that through litigation. We've won in New York in 21 and 22 ahead of the 22 midterms. We have, been proactive about winning legislative seats and governor's races and having the pen and doing all the other things we need to do to be successful on defense. And we've beaten back most of the Pseudo Blue efforts this decade. And so this year in 2025, the Trump administration looked at this and I think rightly said, look, where can we go to be proactive and go on offense instead of being constantly on defense, right? And this isn't the fact that this isn't a war starting because of Texas. This is a response to an ongoing war that's existed for a long time. Both parties saw that redistricting was such a full-time thing that both parties started organizations committed to redistricting in the middle part of the last decade. So this is not something new. And you know who did that first? Barack Obama and Eric Holder. So like the Republicans are doing this thing over here. No, this is something that started a long time ago. And this is just the most recent phase of what's been an ongoing fight for the better part of 15 years.
All
So
right. So
let me address that part first. And then the
thank
text.
you. No, but it's important context because you're right. The media loves to pretend that we started this.
Yep.
And that's simply not true. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that Texas had an issue that they needed to correct in what is, I think it's San Antonio, with one of the districts being in accordance with the Voting Rights Act.
Texas was in the middle of litigation. They were, being sued. They had been sued in early 2021. And full disclosure, I was a big part of drawing the 2021 Texas map, and I was a big part of drawing the 2025 Texas map. And so, they were in litigation, and Texas decided that they were going to proactively redraw their map in the summer of 2025, right? And so the law had changed from 2021 through 2025 through some cases that came up through the Fifth Circuit. And so that new law, that new reality of how to comply with the VRA in the Fifth Circuit in 2025 had a big part to play in how the map was drawn, but not why the map was drawn. That's two different things. But as far as what the Texas map will produce, I've tried to be as consistent as I can be that the goal was to create 3 to 5 new pickup opportunities in the state of Texas. Now, over the last few months, the Democrats have said, well, what you're really saying is you're trying to build a 5-seat bulwark, I think is what Hakeem Jeffries said last week, against, Democrats. Like, it's not a bulwark. What we did is we created 5 new Trump plus 10 districts. 2 of those seats were seats that Trump had, the president had narrowly won in 2024, and we made them more, seats that he carried by a wider margin. The other 3 were new Trump seats that were Trump plus 10, and then 2 that are about Trump plus 20. And so that's the reality here is we're talking about 3 to 5 new pickup opportunities in the state of Texas. I think that 3 of them are solid Republican pickups. That's Texas 32, Texas 9, and Texas 35 are ancestrally Republican. When you look at where they've been over the last 10, 15 years, they reliably elect Republicans to Congress. They would have reliably elect Republicans to Congress, the U.S. Senate, governor, and the presidency. And then you have 2 districts in the Rio Grande Valley that are what I was calling emergent battlegrounds before, and now I would say they're realigning districts. These are Texas 28, which is Henry Cuellar, and Texas 34, which is Vicente Gonzalez.
Yep.
And so those 2 seats, were marginally Republican, Trump seats in 2024 that we took and made them Trump plus 10 districts. Does that mean we win them, no matter what in 2026? No, it's a midterm. They have Democrat incumbents, and we have to go fight for them, right? But is it possible? Absolutely. Can we win both of those? Yes. Can we win 5 seats out of Texas? Yes, we can.
What about the Gonzalez seat? I know there's some concern about this new guy because Gonzalez has said he won't actually seek re-election. Is that district? How did that district fare in terms of shoring it up? Because that's in that similar situation, right?
Oh, you're talking about Texas 23. Yeah. So
Texas 23, right?
Yeah. So Texas 23 incumbent decided not to run for re-election. So you have a new guy running there. So one of the criteria that I had when drawing this new Texas map is that none of the districts that you had a Republican incumbent could, if they were below a Cook PVI of R plus 10, if they were below that, I couldn't drop them further, right? And so Texas 23 is as Republican now as it was before the redraw. So we didn't pull Republicans out of there. All we really did is put more of them into Bexar County, which is the San Antonio area. So you have more suburban, high turnout Republicans in Bexar County that should hopefully help Texas 23 in this midterm. Obviously, you prefer to go in a midterm with an incumbent versus an open seat, but Texas 23 is a Republican district that the president carried by, I think, 15 points or something. So,
Adam, when you look at these PVI numbers, though, that obviously takes in consideration how the president did with like Hispanics, who we're now hearing might be a little wobbly on some of these Republicans and their priorities might be looking somewhere else. We saw some concerns about turnout in Texas 9, that Senate district. how does some of what's going on in the current environment concern you as far as how these things are drawn?
Yeah. So what I like to tell people about redistricting is construction, not sales. What we do is you can build a district. You can make sure that it has the right balance of Republicans and Democrats and make it winnable. But then you have folks like you, Sean, who do the messaging and do the communicating and sell whatever our product is to the voters, right? Whoever our candidate is to the voters. So I think when you look through Texas and you look at the special election that was in Tarrant County and then the primaries, look, they had a lot of energy behind their Senate primary with Tallarico and with Crockett. That definitely juiced turnout. When you look down at the Rio Grande Valley counties, though, what you saw is a lot of Democrats turning out to vote in local primaries, which are still predominantly Democrat controlled. And if you win those local elections in the Democrat primary, you're likely won the general, right? So that's the general in a lot of these areas still. But what you saw is a big drop off. They'd vote in the local elections, but then didn't vote for Senate, right? So you have that sort of turnout. The other thing, people want to talk about the Tarrant County special from a little while ago. If you look at that, what we found is that there was significant drop off in Republican areas turning out, but also the Hispanic turnout was low as well, right? In that area, it was really driven a lot more by other minority groups and by white Democrats that were turning out for that special election. So I'm not going to whistle past the graveyard and say that everything's great and we're no different than where we were in 2024, but I also don't think it's the same doom and gloom that we're seeing from a lot of folks. There's like, oh, Hispanics are completely realigning. I think that what you're seeing from back the other direction, what I think you're seeing is that Hispanic voters, particularly in Texas and also in Florida, they are not sold on either party. And so I think what we have to do, we have to earn it. We have to make the sale. We have to tell people, whether they're Hispanic or otherwise, it's the same. It's what we do, right? We tell them, here's our policies. Here's what we can do to make your life safer, more prosperous, and so that you and your kids can live the American dream the way that we've been able to, right? And so that's the whole point of what the party needs to be messaging to.
All right, so I'm going to put Texas down as +3 and then a hopeful 2. But among the first 5 states that we've done now, that's still a Republican +3 gain. Yep. Let's move to Utah for a second. The court ordered a new map in November of 2025, which shifted towards Democrats. Explain what's going on there and why.
Yeah, this was an ongoing lawsuit that's been pending for going on for about 4 years now. So back in 2019, Utah passed by the thinnest of margins this new redistricting process that it was an advisory redistricting commission. And so once it passed, the group that supported it in the legislature got together and they said, we don't think that these parts of it are workable. We're going to pass through statute some changes to it so that we can make it a more workable process. And so Utah has a tier of ballot measures. They have ballot measures that have the force of a statute and ballot measures that have the force of a constitutional amendment. This passes the force of a statute. And so they passed some laws to change it. And then some left-wing groups sued, saying, well, you can't do that. You couldn't change it. And the map is illegal under the Utah statutes. And so, that lawsuit took a long time to work through the Utah courts. And then last year, the Utah Supreme Court had affirmed a finding by a judge in Salt Lake County saying that they did need to redraw, that it didn't comply, and that Utah's legislature could not pass a statute to amend a voter-approved ballot measure, which was a novel interpretation of the Utah Constitution. And people assume like states like Utah or other Western states have these red states, and so they should have red state Supreme Courts. And that's just not the case. A lot of our Western states in particular, and Kentucky, have pretty liberal to moderately left state Supreme Courts because the state bar has had an outsized role in picking the judges that can be appointed, right? And so what you typically have is the Missouri plan, which is the bar will pick 3 to 5 names, give it to the Republican governor, and say, "These are your 3 to 5 names." And
First of all, that in itself, like that should be on the list of things to change. Like, why are we letting the bar help choose who our Supreme Court justices are? Who are they to decide that? I think that we need to continue to expose this. But
yeah.
let's just bottom line this for Utah. Is this a +1 pickup for them?
It's probably a +1 for this cycle. I don't think it will stand more than one cycle. I think that the voters have an opportunity this fall to repeal Proposition 4 in its entirety and allow the Utah legislature to go back and drawing the maps the way that they should be able to. And yeah, that is signatures were gathered, qualified for the ballot. Democrats are busy now trying to scramble to have people remove their names. But it should appear on the ballot this fall, and Utahns can decide whether they want left-wing groups from Washington, D.C. drawing their maps or Utah legislators doing it.
I want to move to Maryland. There's one Republican, Andy Harris, in Maryland. There's a bit of a disagreement. It's a completely controlled Democratic state. The governor, Wes Moore, the legislature, there's a little bit of a fight, or there was, between the state Senate president, who said, not that he was against it, he said, guys, the court's not going to uphold this, and I'm worried that if we go down this path, he was basically shining a light saying, I've seen the movie. If we go down this path, I think it could get worse for us. Let's keep it 8-1. Are we done with Maryland trying to jigger that map to force out Andy Harris, the lone Republican?
Yeah, the Utah Senate president says it's not moving forward this cycle. They're not going to do it. They're not going to advance it. Governor has said he has a plan B he's working on. No one quite knows what that would even look like if it's not going to go through the legislature. But the Senate president was correct. The Maryland Supreme Court is predominantly Hogan appointees. And, Governor Hogan's, one of his big things was rooting out gerrymandering. He did not like it. He, forcefully opposed it in Maryland. And I think people rightly assume that the judges that he put on the court are likely to share that view. A proportional map in Maryland would have 5 Democrat seats, 2 Republican seats, and 1 competitive district. It currently is 7 solid Democrat seats and 1 solid Republican seat. So I think the Senate president looked at the math and said, if we do this, and if it's challenged, which it was going to be, we could end up losing 1.5 seats instead of gaining 1 seat. So I think that was part of the equation that they looked at there. And I think it was the right analysis.
All right. Indiana, the president's pissed. He didn't get his way there. He's actually been very forceful supporting primary opponents to the current incumbents there. Is Indiana a push? Are we done? They're not doing anything?
Indiana is not moving for this cycle. I know that there's various Indiana state senators that are being primaried currently. Those primaries are coming up here soon. And look, it was an opportunity to pick up 2 slam dunk districts. And Indiana Republicans said, no, we're not going to do it. There's some talk that the Indiana Senate president cut a deal with the Maryland Senate president and, said, we won't redistrict and you all don't redistrict. There's been no evidence of that publicly, but that's been their friends and they're on similar boards together. And, but yeah, so that's what happened there.
What about Kansas? What came out of Kansas?
Yeah, so Kansas has a Democrat governor, so Republicans have to pass a map and then override a governor's veto with a supermajority. And Kansas, like a lot of heavily Republican states, has kind of a 3-party system. They have Democrats, they have Republicans, and then they have pseudo-Republicans. And so there weren't enough of the pseudo-Republicans that were willing to go along with overriding the governor's veto. And so they were not able to petition themselves into a special session in late 2025. And it would require that again to override the governor's veto. And so the Speaker of the House said, look, I'd love to do this, but I don't have the votes for it. And I don't think it was for lack of trying. I think it's just reading the room and realizing that in a place like Kansas and then Nebraska as well, you have some, pseudo Republicans who really like electing Democrats in metropolitan areas.
So nothing. It's a wash.
Nothing's going to change in Kansas for the cycle.
All right. There's some Wizard of Oz line there that we're not going to Kansas. Nebraska.
Yep. Look, I think Nebraska is one of these places where it's not just a congressional seat. which is important by itself. It's also an electoral college vote. And there was a couple of the Omaha area Republicans who really like the fact that millions of dollars get flooded into Nebraska 2 every 2 years, and they want Nebraska 2 to stay a competitive to D-leaning seat. And that's, you have to be able to override a filibuster, and they're about 1 or 2 votes shy of doing that. And I think that, I do believe that in the next couple of years, Nebraska is going to have to look at changing their filibuster rules in state. You can't have 1 or 2 senators from Omaha keeping the entire state from getting conservative government. And so
that's a wash, but Don Bacon is retiring in that 2nd congressional district, meaning it's probably a pickup, but not because of redistricting.
It's a redistricting wash, and it's a competitive seat, for 2026.
New Hampshire, 2 seats there. It's a weird state. You're laughing because it's like, to me, it's perplexing. Like, they love Republican government at the state level, hate it at the federal. 2 congressional districts. You could have easily drawn this, by the way, to make one really Republican.
Yes, New Hampshire is my favorite axe to grind. So a few years ago, Governor Sununu, to his credit, vetoed a redistricting commission that was going to guarantee Democrat control of the state legislature and both congressional seats in perpetuity. And Sununu said, "No, we're not going to do that," and vetoed it. And then a couple years later, Republicans had an opportunity to draw the maps. They had both chambers of the legislature and the governorship, and a state Supreme Court who had said that partisan gerrymandering claims are non-justiciable, which means you can't sue over them. And legislature passed a map that would have given Republicans a very good chance of winning a seat in New England, and Governor Sununu vetoed it, believing that both seats were winnable and competitive, and so we didn't need to draw 1 solid blue seat and 1 competitive Republican-leaning district. Fast forward to 2025, Governor Ayotte also chose to not move forward with redrawing New Hampshire's congressional map. New Hampshire is the only state in the country with a trifecta, meaning, complete party control over the state, that can't seem to draw a congressional map. Every other state with a trifecta has passed one, but Governor Sununu didn't want to have a Republican district in New Hampshire, and Governor Ayotte doesn't either. She, wanted to leave it as is. So the legislature had the votes to pass it out of the House and the Senate, and it just came down to Governor Ayotte not wanting to move forward with doing what's constitutionally required in New Hampshire, which is drawing a congressional map.
New York, it sounds like we got a break. They were trying to get this. The court saved us again, correct?
Well, what New York tried to do is sue themselves into a racial gerrymander to steal New York 11, which is a Staten Island-based district.
Nicole Malliotakis.
Nicole Malliotakis, who is, I believe her ancestry is Greek and Cuban. And somehow she's not the candidate of choice for minority voters in Staten Island or Brooklyn. They tried to sue, saying that the New York Constitution required that you racially gerrymander whenever possible to create these coalition seats, and won. Not only won, they won in front of a judge in Manhattan who didn't even take the evidence at trial to decide the case. He used an amicus brief from these professors at Harvard to issue his ruling, to justify his ruling. Those same professors at Harvard, this is my favorite part of this, filed another amicus brief at the next court up saying, we actually didn't mean that. That's not the thing we wanted him to do. We wanted him to do this other thing. It was actually kind of funny in that way. But the reality is that the lawyers representing Congresswoman Malliotakis took the case to the United States Supreme Court, said this is outrageous. This is, they are trying to impose a racial gerrymander on the state of New York to steal this seat. And the Supreme Court, in what appears to be a 6-3 decision, said, you're right. They put it on hold. And Justice Alito wrote a heck of a concurrence calling them out for what he called an odious attempt at, blatantly violating the United States Constitution. And so they put on hold. New York 11 will not change for the cycle. New York Democrats are expected to move forward with a ballot measure at some point in the next couple of years to try to change their process. That's something they've been trying to do for a long time.
Okay. Virginia currently 6-5 Democrats. Yep. Under a new map, it's 10-1. They're out there campaigning hard, disingenuously saying that this constitutional amendment that we will vote on in April here in Virginia is temporary and restoring fairness, which is absolutely insane. It looks to me, I mean, Republican opposition, despite actually the people of Virginia are with us on the ballot initiative, but the Democrats are running this, I think, really sort of slick ad campaign about fairness, and the Republicans, frankly, have zero opposition to it. It's a pretty ridiculously rudderless Republican attempt at opposition. Are we screwed here now?
No, we're not screwed here now. I think that Republican voters, well, let me say it a different way. I think the Democrat legislature and Governor Spanberger looked at this and they said, Republicans didn't turn out in 2025. And if they're not willing to vote in 2025 when everything's on the ballot, then we can probably sneak this through on an April special election. So are Republicans willing to turn out? Do they? I think that when you see the tax proposals that are being put forward, the assaults on right to life issues, on the potential to go out, tax increases on gun control issues, everything else. I mean, there's not a hot button issue for the Republican coalition that shouldn't motivate somebody to turn out and vote to make a statement, right? And so I think if Republicans are happy with the direction the Commonwealth of Virginia is going, then sure, they can stay home. If they're not happy and they'd like to send a message, then April 21st is their opportunity to do that, either up now or up to April 21st. What Democrats are trying to do is they're not just trying to advance a redistricting plan. By any metric, the Virginia map that's being put forward is the most it would be the most gerrymandered map in the country, which is saying something.
5 of the districts in Southern Virginia would start in Fairfax County. In Northern Virginia, you would be ruled. I mean, I can't believe on that alone that people in Southern Virginia are going to go for this.
Well, no, I think that's the thing, though. Republican voters and independents in Virginia have to turn out, because the reason they anchored 5 seats in Northern Virginia is that the money and voter power of the Democratic Party in Virginia is in Fairfax, Alexandria, and Arlington, right? Yeah. And so they're multiplying their representation and trying to motivate those folks to turn out and vote. And our folks, who are for the most part now in the Shenandoah Valley and in Southwest Virginia and South Side and the Piedmont, have to be willing to turn out and vote. Okay. If our folks vote, we can defeat this measure. If they don't vote, then we will lose. And this, like everything else, it all comes down to whether our people are motivated enough to vote. And I think that there are groups on the Republican side that are moving to fight this thing. I would like to see more from Governor Youngkin, who is the most popular popular Republican figure in Virginia. Would love to have him, step up and lead this effort. I think that would be helpful to everybody. But look, it's this whole thing is they're couching this as a response to the president, a response to Texas or whatever else it might be. The reality is that Democrats were going to do a lot of these things anyway, because we knew that they were doing it. They've been moving forward on ballot measures and changing statutes and doing all this other stuff. I think for where we are in Virginia right now, our voters have to turn out to vote. And
if I don't see, I'm going to give them the 4 right now for the purposes of the count until we see that April 21st vote. So right now, just so we're clear for everyone playing along at home, that's Democrats are +7, Republicans are +6. I put all my, that April 21st vote is massive. But right now, I think Florida's got to save us. What is the reality? I know there's a little bit of a difference between what Governor DeSantis wants in the state legislature. Bottom line this for me, is it realistic to get seats out of Florida this cycle? And if so, how many?
Yes, it is definitely possible for Florida to create more opportunities for Republicans. But you also remember Florida has its Fair District Amendment and is not allowed to draw maps for partisan reasons. And so The reason that Florida can redraw is because Democrats brought a host of lawsuits against the state of Florida that Florida has repeatedly won. And what Florida has said over and over and over again is, fair districts requires that we only draw districts that comply with, that are, if the districts that we draw either have to be required by the Voting Rights Act or federal law, or we have to draw based off of geography and, county geography, city geography, compactness, all these sorts of things. There's a district in South Florida that Governor DeSantis has been zeroed in on for a long time. It's Florida 20. It's shaped like a claw. It has an arm into Palm Beach and an arm into Broward County to pick up two non-compact pockets of black voters to create a district for one reason only, to combine black voters in that area. It's a racial gerrymander. I've been saying it since 2021. Governor DeSantis has been saying it since about 2021 as well. And it resulted from a deal between the legislature and the governor. And everyone knows this. It's public knowledge. It's nothing new that I'm saying here. The governor wanted a different map. The legislature, really wanted the map that they had. And they said, look, we'll take the governor's map north of South Florida, but we want the legislature's map in South Florida. And so what that meant is that you had this legacy racial gerrymander that Supreme Court precedent says you can't draw. State precedent now says as of last year that you shouldn't draw. And so they're looking at potentially redrawing that. And the governor is saying, look, we want to take some time and see if the United States Supreme Court will give us any more guidance on how to draw these seats. And the reason he's saying that is because the case is still pending at the United States Supreme Court called Louisiana versus Calais.
The Voting Rights Act.
Which is over the Voting Rights Act, and whether or not the VRA is, compliance with the VRA is an adequate reason for states to draw based off of race.
All right, Adam, we're running close on time. Let me just bottom line this. What are the odds? First, just answer this. What are the odds that Florida redistricts from 0 to 100?
I think that Florida will redistrict.
Okay, then that's 100. And give me a number. How many seats do we get out of that?
Being that I'm not allowed to talk to the governor or any legislators, and I'm not drawing the map, I think that Florida potentially could create 3 to 5 pickup opportunities for Republicans.
Okay.
If it just draws maps to comply with Florida's fair districts rules.
So even if they go on the low end, that would give us a total of 9 to their 7. So we'd still walk through this entire process and pick up 2 seats.
Yeah, and you have to remember that when we're looking at the beginning of this cycle, Republicans were looking at losing seats on net in redistricting, and now we're looking at gaining seats on net in redistricting.
All right. In 30 seconds, just answer this question for me. You mentioned the Voting Rights Act, this big Louisiana case. If it happens, Louisiana being one of them, what other states will there be potential redraws, and how many net seats could we see out of that? Given the time, because I get some legislators will say, hey, we want to do it, but we can't do it in time for this cycle.
Well, I think the reason that it's happening so late now is that the liberals in the court are slow walking their dissents to slow this down and to keep it from happening. I think that if the United States Supreme Court releases an opinion in March, you might see 2 or 3 states still be able to redraw, maybe. Honestly, I think that Louisiana is probably the only state that would be able to pull it off in time for 2026.
And that would be one?
And that would be 1 seat, most likely.
Okay. So all these other seats, it would be for the next cycle.
It would potentially be in 2028. Okay. But again, it depends on the scope of the opinion, what it says, et cetera. So.
Okay. All right. I still have us at least, if Florida can pull this off, at least plus 2 out of the whole process. Adam Kincaid, love what you guys do. Thank you for this insight. You're not going to hear it anywhere else. I appreciate you all being with us. What an amazing show. We've got a great show coming your way tomorrow. Stick with us. Thanks for joining us on the Sean Spicer Show. As always, go to SeanSpicer.com for the latest. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.